Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Just thought we'd talk briefly about the V-triggers, the different strengths, and I've been having a few debates on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Total Sagat, and just search for me. I really don't post very much, but I do usually pipe up on other people's posts and say my opinion, which is usually the opposite to whatever they're saying. But that's one thing about getting advice, and that's even advice from me on my channel. It's good to think for yourself. Don't always listen to us teachers, you know. Take what we are saying and have a critical think about it, and then make your own decisions. You don't just take things at face value. But anyway, the V1 versus V2 debate. We're going to go into the reasons not to pick V1, the reasons to pick V2, and also how to fix V1 to make it better. So let's go. So before we begin, the most important thing when talking about triggers is the basics of the game. How do you build trigger meter? Now you're probably thinking, well, I know how that's done. Why is that important? It's very important because some characters can build V meter different from others through either their game plan, their V skill, or however their character is designed. Now I can tell you right now, Sagat having a 3-bar trigger, it's hard for him to build meter. Why? Because V skill on its own does not build meter. There's no meter being built there. You need to hit them with that uppercut. And as you can see, he actually gained more V meter than me in that situation. I gained about a quarter of a bar. It's going to take me 4 tiger uppercuts charged to build a V trigger. So you can see immediately through our V skill, unlike a character say like Nikali, who can stomp and make you block, you cannot build a lot of meter through the V skill. Now moving on, the second way to build V meter is to block. I mean, at face value it's a good mechanic, block and build meter, but you have to think about Sagat's design. We as a game plan are trying to keep characters away from us. We want to zone, we do not want to be putting block stun, so we don't want to be blocking a lot. So you can see there's a counter-intuitive design going on there. We need some meter to build a big massive 3-bar V trigger, but we don't want to block because our archetype is not trying to do that. So those things are at odds for me. You will obviously naturally block through the game, but I just don't think it's enough to build a strategy around it, like we'll see in a later video with a different Sagat that tries that strategy. And the other way to build V meter is obviously to take damage. Now, not recommended that you deliberately take damage, but as you can see there from Nikali, it's going to be at least, that's probably a touch more than what's realistic on the screen right now, but it's probably going to be at least half your life. Between blocking the V skill uppercut that you might hit once or twice around, maybe you might hit none, you're going to be losing half of your life before you even think about loading up a 3-bar V trigger. So it's worth considering that as a major point. And overall, the points I've just made, Sagat is not designed to build V meter, unlike say a character again like a Bookie, who can use her V skill, or who is always attacking a character, maybe blocking a lot. He's just not really set up to build the meter required for a V1 trigger, unless of course that trigger is absolutely insane like Blanca, Urian, Nikali, and we know that V1 is not an insane V trigger. Now, just to distinguish the reasoning that people were giving me on Twitter, when I was saying, I was basically in agreement with Bonchan that V1 was not a good V trigger at all, and people were firing various points at me, but none of them really qualified. The first one that appears to be good on face value is that you can V reversal 3 times with a 3-bar V trigger. Now, you've got to be careful with the wording here. What you can actually do with a 3-bar V-trigger is store more V-reversals. If you're going to use V-reversal in the flow of a match, naturally in positional sense, when you're in a bad position, you may use V-reversal constantly, in which case either V1 or V2 you can use as many times as you like, because the meterage does not change. The amount of meter that you build does not change. The only thing that changes is that you can stock 3 meters. Now think to yourself, would there ever be a situation where you've spent building all the V meter to then just use it 3 times? Unlikely. That again seems to be a strange strategy, that I'm going to give up lots of space control to build my V meter to then get V meter to regain space control. Those two things appear to be opposite to me. And the other one is that when you're playing a character that you will need V meter in, so M Bison for example, heavy pressure character, gets you in the corner, you can't escape, you're unlikely to have saved 3 meters. You're more likely to naturally use it through the match. So I think we can debunk that you can V-reversal 3 times. Now the next one is a range buff. It gives Sagat a better range. Now if you know me, I'm not being a hypocrite, I did initially favour V1 over V2, but to be fair to me, I hadn't played with V2 at all. I exclusively used V1 for the first 2 weeks of the game. I really wanted to test it properly, which is probably somewhere in the range of 50 to 100 matches. But once I'd picked V2, I realised that yes, you do get a range buff with the V-trigger, that in that it does extend Sagat's range out, but the problem is you're kind of committing. You can option select it, obviously, if you press the heavy kick and the trigger and it won't come out, then if it hits it does come out. But for 3 bars you're still gambling. I don't think that range is a range that really benefits Sagat. In other words, there's not enough utility there in that 3-bar V-trigger that makes him more of a threat for me. He has slow normals, so we'll go through in a bit what I think would make V1 better. But the range buff, yes, you do get a little bit more range off of V1. Is it worth 3 bars? No. And the final one that someone said that I really disagreed with was that you could just throw the V out and it'd be safe on block. Now, as I'll show you, I'll load up a different clip. You can make V2 safe on block if you're using it from the proper ranges. It's all about spacing. So, I mean, guys, if that's the reason that you're picking V1, your brain is already down the wrong path. I mean, I can pick a 3-bar V-trigger so I can make moves safe on block. You shouldn't be thinking that. You should be thinking that's my comeback factor, or that's my control tool, or that's the tool that makes my character much better. Not it makes my moves safe. That's rubbish. Most of Sagat's special moves are safe anyway, so that's a really poor excuse for me. So, alright, Total Sagat, what's your suggestion then, Mr. Smarty Pants? Well, this is what I would do with it to make it better, and you're going to expect me to say I would just give him 3 cannons, or I would make it 2-bar. No, I wouldn't do any of that. I don't mind that it's 3-bar if it's powerful, so you would want it to be upped in strength rather than it be the same for 2 bars, because really, if it was between V2 for 2 bars and V1 for 2 bars, I would still pick V2, because it just has so much more utility. It does more things in more situations. So what I would do with V1 is this here would do massive chip damage. I'm talking 150 chip damage, maybe even 200 chip damage. Not the piddly amount that it does now. And why would that be good? Well, this would help Sagat zoning, because if you're down, think about Dalsim, right? When you get hit by the carpet, if you're down 200 chip there, say you did it twice in a row, like that, and you're down maybe 250 health, you do not want to get hit. You want to back off, and Sagat can start his zoning again, and then we can go into rushdown mode, and it gives Sagat a different playstyle. All of a sudden you're chasing them about the screen trying to get that grey health off. That would be my first buff, but that wouldn't be my only buff. I would do something else. Now, people familiar with Ryu will remember the EX Fireball is +2 in the corner, which gives him a straight 50-50 between a throw and a hit. I would do that with Sagat's V1. This is +2 on block, maybe even better. Now that makes it powerful. That's giving you corner shenanigans, shimmies, throws. As we know, Sagat's juggles are very good in the corner, so making that plus on block is giving him Oki. So we're doing big chip damage, and now we've got Oki options. Small changes, but such a difference. And I would do one more, although some people might think this is a little bit extreme. Last one I would simply do would be to speed it up. Not the fireball, the startup of the move. It's slower in startup than a regular fireball. So if it really wanted to make it an incredible zoning tool for likes of Guile, I would make it so you could almost reaction punish fireballs, rather than having to sort of guess when they're going to throw it. Also, if you think about, now Blanca players going to hate me here, imagine a Blanca ball, you can V-cannon that because it starts up so fast, and now all of a sudden we've got a 3-bar trigger that's worth something. So those are my changes, guys. To all the people that might be listening saying that would be broken, that would be too good, guys, look around the game. There is broken shit absolutely everywhere, and I don't even think that's that powerful. People kind of hypocrites when it comes to the game. As soon as you mention a move being quite good, they get a bit defensive, but I mean, fuck those guys. That's just my suggestions, and I think that would be a superb addition to make that V1 well worth picking, because right now, like Bonchan says, it's probably one of the, I think he's went a bit extreme. It's not the worst VTrigger in the game, but it certainly would be in the basket. So have a think. And just a little bit on V2 before we go any further. It just has so much utility. You can guard break with it. It has armor. It reaches really far. You can cancel into critical art confirmed just off the one kick. To the guy that said it's not safe on block, well, yeah, that's this one, but nobody's using that from out here. There is literally no character punishing that move. Have you ever seen that move punished? I haven't, and I've never been punished myself. 2 bars, V2, you're going to be able to still use V reversal and still have your trigger. Whereas V1, you're going to be locked in to either using V reversals or trigger. So it's just so clear cut for me, it's not even funny. V2 is just the trigger to pick. And for those guys that are still interested, this is the match that spawned a lot of this commentary. At first it was from Ultra David, who said that saving up 3 V-bars was a good idea, and then various other people have mentioned it through general conversations. But what the problem with me here is that now, don't get me wrong, this player does extremely well against a very, very highest level opponent that you could think of, but I just don't know, I just don't agree with the general strategy of deliberately conceding ground to then only win ground back. That seems to me like, if you've ever heard of the phrase robbing Peter to pay Paul, where or hedging your bets. This hedging your bets is when you're betting on red and betting on black and you win the same amount of money. You didn't win anything. That's a little bit like that to me, what this guy is doing here. Extremely good player, really rated Sagat, and what he's doing here does appear to work. He does very well in this match and actually drops a match winning combo when he should have critical art at the end in the corner. But yeah, what do you guys think? I don't I'm just not in agreement with letting Guile dictate the match only to try and win the match back with the space control of the V reversal. Again, it seems like you're not doing something, then doing the very thing that you were trying not to do. I would much prefer he used this strategy but still played with Guile with footsies and fireballs, as opposed to just solely concentrating on this style. I just, to put it like this, I think you could use V1 in some matches, like where you would need to absorb a lot of hits, but whether it's just worth that cost of the 3 bars, I'm just not sold on. What do you guys think? Watch the rest of this match. Like I say, I don't think there's anything wrong with what the player is doing here. I just don't think it's a viable long-term strategy. It seems to be more of a way to beat Daigo rather than play the matchup. But stick them in the comments, guys. Be good to hear from yous, and keep fighting.